Okay, baby, I think it's time for me to go. See you next week if the weather is good. I love you, I said. The day was truly beautiful. 24 degrees, sunny, light southern breeze. I packed everything from our little picnic into a basket and put it in the trunk of my car along with the lawn chair. I felt peaceful, serene, and yes, a little sad. This is how a visit to Kat always affected me. I've been in love with her since we were 12 years old, and I'll probably love her until the day I die. When I first saw Kat, my then best friend, Robert the Bruce, and I were playing catch in my front yard. She and her family were moving into a house next door that was for sale. It was the middle of summer before second grade. I was 7 years old. Robert and I happened to glance at a mover and family who were visiting the house that had previously belonged to the Miller family when I noticed her. She was thin, with long blonde braids and lots of freckles. Only later did I find out that she also had azure eyes. We watched her from the side and tossed the ball back and forth for a while until the girl came up to her father and spoke to him, pointing at Robert and me. I saw her father nod his head, then she ran into her house, reappearing a few seconds later with her own baseball glove and heading towards us. "Can I play too?" she asked, her smile revealing a row of jagged teeth. She introduced herself as Catherine McVeigh, Katie to her friends, and Kat to her boyfriends. I saw Robert wrinkle his nose, but I must admit I was fascinated. I opposed Robert's decision, and the three of us began to play ball. She knew how to hold a glove, and, just as important, she didn't throw like a girl. As far as I could tell, she was accepted, expanding our little group of friends to 4, the other being Jimmy Arthur. Although there were more than enough girls in our area for her to play with, Kat spent most of her time with boys. She played baseball, kickball, war, and frisbee with us. I didn't see her spending much time with the girls, especially when they were playing with dolls or dressing up. Little by little, Kat overtook Robert as my best friend. If I could only invite one friend to go somewhere with his family, I chose Kat. If I could stay the night with one friend, I chose Kat. Kat's family was Catholic, but that didn't matter, until she was confirmed when she was 12. Confirmation is a very important event for devout Catholics, and there is usually a big party afterwards. Like most of the girls being confirmed that day, Kat wore a white dress and white tights. Very unusually for her, her hair was down. 2 weeks before, she had the braces taken off her teeth and she had some makeup done. I'm confused. I looked at Kat as if I had never seen her before. She was beautiful. My life will never be the same again. "What are you staring at, Julian?" "Shut your mouth, otherwise a fly will fly in," she said, seeing me staring at her. "Don't you dare say anything about this dress, otherwise I'll beat you so hard that you won't see anything for a week." I remember that throughout the party, I could neither breathe nor think. All of us children were asked to behave, but that evening I could not have behaved badly if my life depended on it. I was a vegetable. My heart was pounding. I'm sweating. If I were a 65-year-old man, I would probably be rushed to the hospital, thinking I was having a heart attack. I waited until the party was almost over and finally walked up to Kat, took her hand, and led her to a quiet place. "Hey, man, your palms are really sweaty," Kat said as we walked. "What did you need to tell me that you couldn't say in front of everyone?" You're beautiful, Kat," I stammered, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not sure I've received such a strong blow in my entire life up to this point. She hit me square in the mouth, cutting my lower lip and knocking me to the ground. "You are a stupid idiot! Never talk to me again!" she hissed, leaving. I lay there on my back in the grass, wondering if she meant me. I don't know how long I lay there, but the next thing I knew, my mother was helping me sit up and pressing a napkin to my bloody lip. "Are you all right, Jewel?" she asked, calling me by a name that only my family had the courage to use. "What's happened? Who hit you?" "Kat." "Kat hit me because I said she was beautiful," I muttered through my napkin. "You told her she was beautiful and she hit you?" Mom asked, giggling. I nodded, upset that Mom seemed to be laughing at Kat for hitting me. "Oh, son, you made a big mistake by telling Catherine that," she said, helping me slowly to my feet. Tomorrow you'll probably need to apologize. Now let's go home. But Mom, why should I apologize? She really is beautiful, I whined as we walked to our house next door. Weren't you the one messing around with her on the floor yesterday, playing WWF Superstars or something? And today you tell her that she is beautiful. Is Catherine like the girls you call beautiful? She asked. This was the first of many times in my life when I did not understand fair sex. When I knocked on the door of the McVeigh's house the next day, I was greeted with a knowing smile by Kat's mother. She's in the living room, Julian. Why don't you go to the kitchen and I'll send her there so you can be alone, she said. Kat was grinning like a hyena as she walked into the kitchen. I knew that she was very proud of herself for the blow she had struck me with. My lip became swollen and purple in color. I mumbled, rather than spoke. Sorry, Kat. I shouldn't have said what I said, I rasped. Yes, I shouldn't have, but I probably shouldn't have hit you either, she answered. My mother said that you were actually good. When did you learn this? I shrugged. I guess my mother taught me that. Obviously, she was wrong. Okay, I won't tell anyone that I broke your lip if you don't tell anyone that you called me beautiful, she said. Agreed, I said enthusiastically, holding out my hand to shake. But Kat, you really were beautiful. Thank you, I think, she whispered. I never told Kat she was beautiful again, at least for the next few years, but I also never looked at her the same way again. She will never be just Kat to me again. One of the guys. It didn't help that Kat's breasts began to grow. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one looking at Kat that way, and I have to admit, I didn't like it one bit. I always seemed to consider Kat mine, and suddenly other boys seemed to appear out of nowhere to talk to her and flirt with her. To her credit, she didn't look like she was affected in any way, which at least gave me some small comfort. She was still my Kat, at least in my mind. Junior high school is a stronghold of teenage hormones, and our school was no different. I know my hormones were often on alert, but I knew I had to be careful. There was no way I wanted Kat to hit me again. There were a lot of other attractive girls at my high school, but I really only had eyes for Kat. The problem is that I seemed to be stuck being her friend because we had been close for so long. Other guys didn't have such problems and often approached her, and every time I felt a little frozen inside. Because I was watching Kat very closely, I noticed that she was not quite like all the other girls. That is, she is no longer such a tomboy as before, but she also doesn't look like the others. I can't say that I'm complaining. In high school, group dating was all the rage, although individual dating was starting to happen. Usually during group dates, Kat stayed with me and never agreed to individual ones, although I know that she was invited. As for me, there weren't any girls in Kat's attraction zone, so I didn't ask other girls out on dates. The main social event of the year at our school was the spring dance for 8th graders. Of course, I asked Kat to come with me, and then I tried to avoid it. But she did not shy away and agreed. Kat was wearing a very beautiful dress that I had never seen before, and I was wearing my Sunday suit. It seemed to me that we made a good couple. Both sets of parents made sure to take a lot of photos. Before my father drove us to school, her father stopped me on the side of the road and threatened to kill me if I dared touch his daughter the way my father wouldn't want my little sister touched. And this will be after she herself beats the living thing out of you. Got it, Julian? Of course, Mr. McVeigh, I croaked. We had a good time at the dance. We danced together several times and stayed close about most of the event. Several other guys asked her to dance, but she turned them all down. I felt like King Kong. At the end of the evening, Dad took us home. As I walked her to the door, my palms were sweaty, and my heart was pounding in my chest. This was the moment of truth. I planned to kiss her goodnight, assuming she would say yes to my request. In no case did I plan to attack Kat with kisses. While Dad drove the car to our house, leaving us alone on the porch, I croaked my request for a kiss, secretly watching her hands. She thought for a few seconds, and then nodded silently. In the movies, I had already seen how this was done, so I stepped towards her, grabbed her by the back, and kissed her, as it seemed to me, quite firmly. right on her warm, soft lips. She didn't move for the first few seconds, and then she returned the kiss, placing her hands on my shoulders. I was sure that my brain had short-circuited for a while. When I regained the ability to think a few seconds later, I was shaking from head to toe. "Did you feel it?" I asked in a whisper. She looked at me as if I had grown a second head before she finally crushed my soul. "No, I didn't feel anything," she replied. "Should I have?" No, no, no. This shouldn't have happened. James Bond never received such platitude when he kissed a woman. "Well, good night, Kat. I had a good time," I muttered. "Yes, me too," she said before walking into her house. Although Kat and I didn't meet during our first year, we still talked often, as always. After all, she was still my best friend. However, now she spends more time than before with other girls. Frankly, I was somewhat perplexed because before she had never wanted to spend so much time with her peers. I guess I should have known that sooner or later she would turn into a grown girl. Being an idiot, I didn't even think to ask Kat to be my date to the prom dance. I just figured she knew we were going together. Apparently, she didn't know, because about 3 weeks before the prom, I found out that she had agreed to go on a date with the handsome young Chris Tambran. I found out about this date when she casually told me about it. But I thought we were going to prom together," I whined. It was clear from my face that she surprised and offended me. "I'm sorry, Julian," she said softly. "You didn't tell me anything, and I decided I didn't think I should say anything. My fault. You know what the word assume means," I said. "I hope you have a good time." The walk to school the next morning started very quietly as Robert, Jimmy, Kat, and I walked the half-mile distance to school. No one said anything until Robert asked if he and his date, Allie Forst, could go to prom with Kat and me. We looked at each other before Kat finally answered. We're not going to prom together? Chris Tambran asked me to go with him, and I agreed," Kat said. "Oh," Jimmy said, and let out a soft whistle. Robert patted me on the shoulder, and we continued on our way in silence. For the first time in my life, there was a rift in my relationship with Kat. We barely communicated for the next few weeks, as she began spending almost all her time with her girlfriends. 2 weeks before prom, my mom asked if I could have my suit dry cleaned. I understood why she was asking. I didn't tell her about Kat and Chris Tambran. When he told me, she stood there with her mouth open for several seconds. "Sorry, Jewel," she said quietly. "I take it you won't go with anyone?" "Yeah," I croaked in response. I tried to pretend I didn't care when I saw Chris pull up to Kat's house to pick her up for the dance night. But Mom and Dad weren't buying it. Chris is a handsome blonde man who was the starting guard on our basketball team. His height is 88 meters, weight 84, blue eyes. All the girls at school talked for 2 weeks about how lucky Kat was. Jimmy and I spent the whole night dancing at the bowling alley. We spent a fortune for 2 children, playing 10 games each and eating 1 pizza in the hall for 2. I was so out of my depth that Jimmy beat me overall for the first time in my life. At least one of us had a good time. Kat and I spent the better part of 2 weeks avoiding each other. I don't know about her, but I was unhappy. I didn't know how to get out of this impasse, although I wasn't sure I should care. 2 days later, I was sitting in my room looking at the ceiling when Mom brought Kat in. "Someone needs to talk to you, Jewel, and you need to listen," Mom said. I guess Mom and Kat talked first. Mom had a benevolent smile on her face, and Kat looked like she was ready to cry. "Forgive me, Julian. I probably shouldn't have met him without consulting you. I knew you expected us to go to prom together," she said. "Well, yes, something like that," I answered. I had to offer. My mother scolded me greatly for this. I am stupid. She still had tears in her eyes. It finally dawned on me that this was about something more than just a date. "Julian, can we have a serious conversation? Well, that is, for real? Like, about life and death, maybe? I really need to talk to someone, and I think that person should be you. Can you just listen to me without judging or getting angry. I really, really need you right now, Julian. Okay, Kat. I've always been yours, I replied. You speak, I listen. Whatever it is, we can solve it together. She hugged me tightly and cried. I gave her a few minutes to cry, and then I pulled her away from me and looked into her eyes. Come on, I whispered. Remember when we kissed and you asked me if I felt it and I said no? She began. Well, I had questions, and I was wondering, is it about you or about me? So I decided to try dating another guy and see if I feel it with him or not. You kissed Chris, I interrupted, but quickly fell silent when she pointed at me and made a crazy grimace. Again, I didn't feel anything, but he did when he grabbed me by the chest a few minutes later. I hit him hard in the crotch, and he vomited. He kept his distance from me for about an hour until we left early, she explained. I started to speak again, but she stopped me with an icy look. Okay, now is the hard part, she continued. I've been worried actually, about some of the feelings I've had for a few girls over the past year or so. I thought I might be a lesbian. When I didn't feel anything when I kissed you or Chris, the picture became clearer. And when she kissed Kendra Rizzi in the library 2 days ago, everything fell into place. Tears flowed from her eyes, and I sat on the bed, speechless. Say something, idiot, she shouted at me. I was waiting for you to let me talk, I snapped. She looked at me again and then shrugged. I decided it was now my turn to speak. Did you kiss Kendra Rizzi? Wow. I'd like to do it myself, I said. And that's all you have to say? Is it true? She commented. Wait, I thought you liked me? I like you, and you know it. So, is this kiss with Kendra just a kiss? Or is there something going on between you two? I asked. She looked guilty and embarrassed. I really don't know. But that's only half the story, Julian. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I understand, I said. It looks like you have a lot of thinking to do. But whatever you decide, I'm here for you. I will always be there for you, Kat. Always. She sat down on the bed next to where I was sitting and tried to break my ribs by hugging me. So you won't hate me? She sobbed into my shoulder. I can't even if I try. If only you can bear that I will love you from a distance for the rest of our days. I said. She hugged me again. I hugged her back. I was sure that I was the first person she told about her decision, although I had a feeling that in time she would tell others about it. We never discussed it when others were around. I know that she dated several other girls later in her school years, but for the most part, I was a cover for her. Whenever there was any important event or party, I was her date. I was safe, and we still had a great friendship, so everything was fine. It probably didn't hurt that I was a good kisser, she once confessed to me. In exchange for my covering for her, she was my companion when I needed it, like when my Aunt Trudy remarried. Most of my family had seen her with me so often over the years that they automatically assumed she and I were a couple. Then the day came when she turned my world upside down. In July, on a Friday evening, the whole group of us went to celebrate Kat's 18th birthday. We visited 2 dance clubs and had a great time. Kat and I behaved like good friends, if not exactly dating partners. I occasionally put my arm around her waist, touched her lightly, kissed her a couple of times in a friendly manner on the lips. Our group consisted of 10 people, including 2 real couples, and over the course of the evening they began to increase their degree of sexuality. Surprisingly, Kat seemed to be getting more and more excited. It was probably after midnight that she changed my life. Take me somewhere and make love to me, Julian, she whispered in my ear. We were on the dance floor, slow dancing, when she said her line. I froze. That is, I stopped dancing and stopped breathing, standing like a statue. Are you sure, Kat? I asked, almost in a whisper. Well, that is, I don't want you to feel obligated. She led me by the hand from the dance floor. As we passed our table, she told Becky Hansen that some of those sitting there would have to find their own way home. Indeed? She asked. Kat nodded silently. Both girls exchanged grins, then Kat led me to the car. I'm confused, Kat, I said, getting behind the wheel. I really want this, but only if you want it as much as I do. What's going on, baby? We can't talk about this now, Julian. I have something going on right now, and I don't want to lose this feeling. Do you trust me? She asked. Always. Of course, I replied. I didn't know where we could go, but I knew of one area located in a cul-de-sac on the north side of town. We were there in 20 minutes. Get into the back seat, quickly. That's all she said. We got into the back seat, and she immediately pressed her face to me, kissing me furiously. The kissing continued for at least 20 minutes. Take off my clothes, strip me naked, Julian. Have sex with me, do it, but start easy. I'm still a virgin, she said. Me too, I said quietly. It was probably too dark for her to see me blush, but I saw her eyes glaze over with lust before a look of surprise appeared on her face. Indeed? I would have thought that such a handsome guy like you— I was waiting for the right girl, I interrupted. And it's me, despite what you know? She asked. Well, you're here, I said, smiling radiantly, my heart pounding in my chest. Yes. Now kiss me and don't rush, she said. Neither of us thought about foreplay. I slowly and very carefully turned the girl into a woman. Kiss me again and go slow, she whispered. I pressed my lips to her soft lips. We continued to kiss and make love on the most beautiful night of my life. She moaned several times, and then we both came to the finish line. I'm sure the low roar was mine and the high scream was hers. I don't know how long we made love and how long our ascent to the heights of voluptuousness lasted. All I know is that I came to my senses a few minutes later, when we were both lying on the seat, my body half lying on hers, and we were both breathing heavily. Several minutes passed before either of us spoke. Wow, I muttered. Yes, exactly, she replied. What was it? I asked. Silence reigned for several long minutes, interrupted only by the sounds of our kisses. What if I'm wrong, Julian? What if I'm not a lesbian? How can I find out about this unless I try to take the road less traveled? She said. Anyway, I wanted you to be first. You are my best friend. You have always been my best friend. I can't imagine a time when you will no longer be my best friend. Thank you, she added, not paying attention to me. I grinned back. We went to college in the same state, about an hour apart, and out of the public eye, Kat finally felt free and, she says, openly dated other women. She showed me photographs of several of her partners, and I had to admit that she had excellent taste in women. I joked that I should ask her to find me a woman who wasn't a lesbian since she had such good taste. Don't be a jerk. Look for your own beauties, Romeo, she said. We talked at least a couple of times a week. Usually these were just friendly conversations, but sometimes we moved on to topics of a more personal nature. Both could ask each other questions about sex that they couldn't ask anyone else. It was something of an opportunity to get insider information. Besides, we could be honest with each other. Even though I understood that college was the first time Kat could truly embrace gay life, I didn't want her to derail her life and get into trouble. I didn't want her to become a slut, even if she played for another team. She was too dear to me for this to happen. Be careful, Kat. Keep your eyes open. I understand that I'm starting to sound like your parents, but only because I don't give a damn, baby, I once said, turning to her. It makes no difference who you date, men or women. A slut is still a slut. I obey, Mom, she answered me boldly. Kat's parents were stunned when she finally opened up to them over Christmas break of her freshman year. She told me that she was going to tell them about it the first night after she returned. The next day, her mom called me and asked if I could come over to talk to her and her husband. I've known them forever. They were practically second parents to me. How could I refuse them? Why didn't you tell us, Julian? Was the first question I was asked when I met with them. You're practically a member of the family. How could you not tell us? Asked Mrs. McVeigh. It's not for me to tell you about this, and I love Kat too much to go behind her back, I replied. She herself should have finally told you. My job is to support her and cover her back. I always thought that someday you would be together. I always thought you had something, her mother said. We were always best friends, but in high school she told me that she considered herself a lesbian. At first I was crushed, but then I realized that she could be the way she is. I will always love her, and she knows it. I guess it hurt when she said we'd never be together that way, but at the same time it didn't hurt as much as if there was another guy, I said. So this date was really just a pretense? Asked the father. You both... I didn't think her parents needed to know everything, so I just told her what I thought they needed to know. I helped by covering for her on dates, and she paid me by being my companion at some events. I love her, always loved, and always will love. I will always have her back no matter what, I said. That's all we can ask for, Julian. Thank you, her father said. Throughout college, I dated occasionally. I was not a monk, but I was not looking for a suitable match either. I had more than enough casual connections. But Kat, by her own admission, met often. Apparently, she was making up for lost time. Early in the fall of her senior year, I went to Kat's apartment to visit her over Labor Day weekend. She lived with 2 other girls in a 3-room apartment, and no one objected to me sleeping on the floor in Kat's room. More precisely, no one objected until her roommates met me, after which they both offered to share their beds with him. Kat didn't find it as funny as they did. I blushed appropriately, although I was sure that the taller of her 2 neighbors, Alicia, was speaking in all seriousness. Fuck off, ladies. He's my best friend, Kat said. Yeah, but you're not going to use it properly, said the other roommate, Roxy. On Saturday night, the 4 of us went to a dance club. I had fun dancing with all 3 women in turn. I was on the dance floor with Alicia when I saw Kat heading towards the dance floor with a 5-foot-tall goddess with reddish blonde hair, bright green eyes, and legs from the ears. Crap. Kat remained on the floor after Alicia and I returned to our table with Roxy. Roxy sat with a Cheshire cat grin as she watched Kat and the goddess. Just look at this! The most beautiful woman in the whole place walks up to Kat and drags her to the floor. I'm not even a lesbian, and I might seriously think about having sex with this woman, Roxy said, her face turning red. Oh, yes, this is a hot Amazon, Alicia said. I would think about that too. Both women turned their heads and looked at me. Include me in this list, I replied. Lauren Sittler looked like the volleyball player she was during her first 2 years of college until she broke her ankle, ending her career. She and Kat returned to the table, hugging each other, and I could tell from Kat's glazed look that she was planning to go home with her. She introduced Lauren to everyone at the table, and then leaned towards me to say what I had already guessed. Is it okay if I catch you tomorrow morning and we can have breakfast at IHOP at 9 o'clock? She giggled. Certainly. I'll make sure Lish and Roxy get home safely, I said. We kissed tenderly on the lips before he and Lauren left the club. All 3 of us at the table giggled among ourselves, looking after those leaving. Wait a minute. She didn't tell us that you can't come to our bed today, Alicia said. Do you think this is an oversight or... By the way, that night was the first and only night of 3 in my life. Alicia had a queen-size bed, and it wasn't until about 3 in the morning for the 3 of us to settle down. The girls allowed me to use their shower so that I could at least wash off the smell of our glorious night of debauchery and recover a little. I kissed Alicia and Roxy goodbye, and by 8:55, I was waiting for Kat at IHOP, drinking coffee. She came in at 9 o'clock, accompanied by Lauren. They smiled and giggled like schoolgirls. I hope you don't mind that I invited Lauren, Kat said shyly. I hope Alicia and Roxy took good care of you last night. The last one was more of a statement than a question. It was my turn to be shy. Kat and Lauren got jobs in the same city, and after graduating from university, they moved in together. I was happy for them and told them so. Over the next 10 years, I visited them several times, and they visited me about as often. My love in life did not turn out as successfully as Kat's. I had a few girlfriends, but nothing promising until Lily Hanlon came into my life 5 years after leaving school. I was a member of the local YMCA and went there 3 times a week to work out in the gym. From time to time, I would wander into the gym, grab a loose basketball, and shoot a few shots to stretch my muscles. There were 6 courts at the Y, and all but the one I played on had games. A woman several years younger than me came up dribbling a ball and asked if I would mind if she put it in my basket. I said yes, and soon she was shooting the ball into the hoop like she was Damian Lillard. When she started shooting three-pointers, I stopped shooting and started watching. She noticed that I was watching her and began adding some words and sound effects, such as 2 or 3, bang or bang. I smiled, admiring her throws and impudence. "Would you like to play horse?" she asked, grinning. I was a pretty good player in my day, but I was at least a few years past my prime, and I knew it. And horse is all about making shots. And after all, I was known as the king of the shaky shots, at least in my mind. I agreed. She started and made 3 long throws in a row, only 2 of which I could repeat, so I lost the first X pretty quickly. Then she missed her next throw, and it was my turn to throw first. I turned to my right side and, to her surprise, threw it with my left hand. "It was impromptu, wasn't it? You made other throws with your right hand," she said. "Yeah. Come on now," I smiled. She missed this throw, and I also made the next 2 with my left hand. She made a face. "Come on, cheap girl, do something normal," she whined. "Cheap? Why? Because I can use my left hand and you can't?" I giggled. "How about we do something normal?" I walked to the free throw line and shot with both hands, in the style of famous NBA player Rick Barry. She looked dumbfounded. "Indeed?" she said almost mournfully. I nodded silently. She sighed, then missed, 1 letter away from defeat. She looked very upset, her big brown eyes wet with disappointment. "Yes, I understand." "How on earth can you lose to this wannabe?" I said, my smile growing wider by the second. "I'm one of those. Nothing extraordinary, but I have skills. Strange skills. But nevertheless, I have them. A decent athlete, but not a great one. Some brains, some common sense, but not the guy who went to Harvard." "Just make your final throw and put me out of my misery," she growled. "I'll tell you what. If I win, you'll agree to have dinner with me tomorrow night. Applebee's is nothing special, so don't even consider it a date." "Agreed?" I asked. She thought for a second, then became embarrassed. She finally realized that I was playing her. She smiled and giggled. "Agreed," she said, throwing me the ball. I barely glanced at the basket because I knew where I was on the court. Anyone who has played a lot of ball in the schoolyard can do this. Then he made his left 5-meter throw. She grabbed the ball after it went through the hoop and moved to where I was still standing with my hand raised. I took a step to the left. She came up to me, made another awkward left throw, and whispered, "Applebee's is yours, stud." Damn, you're an insufferable asshole, you know that? Actually, I know. "I'm Julian Leonard, by the way," I said. "Lily Hanlon." "Too bad, loser," she said stiffly. "Oh, too bad. Well, maybe tomorrow night I can change your mind," I said. The next evening, I managed to convince her and she agreed to a real date on Friday night. It turned out that she was 23 years old, a college graduate, and working in the human resources department of an auto parts manufacturing company. She is smart, literate, loves to flirt, and is also a good athlete. We quickly felt attracted to each other, and after the first month of dating, we became exclusive. I had never had such a connection with a woman named Kat before. The only obvious downside was her tendency to flirt. We talked about exclusivity and fidelity, and discussed her flirting a few times, and where I think the line needs to be drawn. She insisted that it was all fun, and I replied that it didn't amuse me. We fought about it a few times, and she always promised that she would try her best. Then we would end up in bed and have amazing make-up sex. I understood that she was manipulating me through sex, but I really felt that she loved me, and I definitely fell deeply in love with her. About 6 months after we became a couple, I took her on a long weekend with Kat and Lauren. I explained to her a long time ago what I had with Kat, and I told Kat and Lauren everything about Lily. The weekend went well, and I thought all the women got along well. Moreover, several times when I entered the room, the conversation between them stopped, and giggling began. I took this as a good sign that they were getting closer, even if it seemed like they were conspiring against me. Kat was expecting my call when she answered on the Monday evening after our weekend meeting. As my best friend, she also knew exactly the reason for my call. I really like her, Julian. I think that she can become that very girl for you. Lauren likes it too, but Lauren noticed something I missed. Lauren says that when we were at the dance club last night, she was a little flirtatious. I took this as enthusiasm, but Lauren thought she was going a little overboard. You know, she loves you just like I do, and she also paid attention, said Kat. Thanks for your opinion, baby. That's exactly what I wanted and needed to hear, I said. 3 months later, I asked Lily to marry me, and she agreed. The wedding was scheduled for about a year later. Before I proposed to her, I met with Lily's parents several times. I thought they were nice enough, although I realized her father didn't think I was good enough to marry his daughter. My father told me not to worry about it because it was just dad stuff, and I would experience it someday if I had a daughter. I tried not to pay attention to it, but I had the feeling that he did not respect me for the fact that my hands were growing from the wrong place. I know it sounds crazy, but Lily's father owns a fairly successful construction company, and both his son and son-in-law work for him. I'm a mid-level accountant and not very useful in DIY projects. If we forget that the three of them can hardly count to 100, then I'm not good only because I don't know how to make things. The wedding was going to be a pretty big event in her parents' hometown, which was about a 2-hour drive from where we lived. Lily was going to have her bachelorette party there 2 weeks before the wedding. The bridal shower was organized by her sister Willie, the bride's married friend at the wedding, and the rest of the bridesmaids. Lily said there would be 15 of them, so they booked 5 rooms at the Hilton Hotel in town, figuring they would be too drunk to drive home. I said I thought it was reasonable. Since I was going to be alone that evening, I decided to treat myself to a bottle of Angel's Envy Rye, a truly top-notch whiskey, and 2 of my favorite movies of all time, Jeremiah Johnson and the original Rollerball. The evening was great. I wasn't too drunk when I passed out a little after midnight. Waking up with a slight hangover around 6 in the morning, I decided to take an aspirin and go back to bed. But then a mischievous thought struck me. I thought there would be quite a few hungover women at the hotel this morning, among Lily and the others, and it would be a little funny to see what the booze had done last night. I knew that they were supposed to gather for breakfast at 9 and decided to come too. He quickly took a shower and hit the road. In fact, I arrived a few minutes early and stood aside when Willie and about 8 other women showed up for breakfast. Lily was not among them. I assumed she had gained very well. I waited a few minutes before approaching the chattering, hungover group. Lily passed out that she didn't even come out to breakfast with you this morning? I asked with a wide smile. 9 heads quickly turned in my direction, and I discovered that I was the only one smiling. God, please no. What room is she in? I know you girls must have numbers 201 to 205. Damn, which one is she in? I shouted. One of the women began to rise, as did my blood pressure. Stand! Don't let anyone move! I shouted. The woman sat back down. They started talking incoherently to each other. I went to the elevator and went up to the 2nd floor. It didn't take much hearing to understand what was going on in room 205. I turned around and walked out of the hotel, tears of anger and frustration flowing from my eyes. Babud, I spent most of the 2-hour drive home contemplating turning down the hill and killing myself. I didn't see this coming at all. I didn't know who it was or why. All I knew was that the wedding was canceled. I guess I was lucky that I found out about this sooner rather than later. When I got home, the first thing I did was call Kat, who was to be my best man, and Lauren, and tell them my sad story. Then I called my parents. God bless my mom. She volunteered to call 28 guests on our side and inform them that the wedding was canceled. Since Kat already knew everything, all I had to do was call Robert and Jimmy, my 2 best men. In addition to feeling uneasy about what had happened, I was stunned that I still hadn't heard from Lily in the middle of the day. I decided that since I wasn't the one who cheated, there was no need to call me. On Sunday around noon, Lily came to me looking very remorseful looking as if she was about to cry when I opened the door and let her in. "I'm so sorry I'll never be able to put it into words," she said, sitting down on my couch. "I got carried away with the party and lost my head," she said. "Is that what you call losing your head?" I asked. "And how many times have you lost your head?" She blushed heavily and lowered her eyes, then gradually raised them to me. "Only once the night before, and then again in the morning," she whispered. "Okay, now the difficult question, why have you lost your heed? Am I not enough for you?" I asked. "As I already said, I just lost my heed. I drank too much and lost my heed. He was handsome. Just don't continue, or I'll beat the crap out of you," I interrupted. "I've never hit a girl before, but this makes me want to do it for the first time. And who is this freak anyway? He's just some guy. He meant nothing to me," she said. "Yes, and for me, he meant a lot. In fact, it meant our end," I said. "No, we can't do that. Everything is ready for the wedding. My parents have already paid a fortune," she said. "Not my problem. It wasn't me who had sex with someone who wasn't my fiancé," I said. "Oh, okay. We're not even married yet," she whined. "That's it, and we won't do it again," I said. "You know that my father will kill you, right?" she asked. "No, when he finds out that it was you who changed. If anything, I think he should apologize to me," I said. Uh, uh, she stammered. "I thought so," I snorted. I didn't hear anything from Lily's father, so I assumed she was telling the truth about what happened. The weekend I was to get married, Kat and Lauren were staying with me. They just showed up unannounced on a Friday night, right after I got home from work. "We already had the weekend booked, and we didn't want you sitting here alone, drowning your sorrows alone. Now you can drown them with us, but you give them a treat," said Kat when they appeared at the door of my apartment. We didn't get blackout drunk that night, but I know both of these women got me drunk enough for me to get a good night's sleep that night. In fact, I slept so well that I didn't wake up until 9:30 the next morning. Lauren was sitting at the table, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, when I staggered into the kitchen wearing only gym shorts and a t-shirt. The bathroom and guest bedroom doors were open, but Kat was neither seen nor heard. "Hey, where is this Onion Mountain this morning? She doesn't usually get up early on Saturday," I said. Lauren nodded, but I noticed a smirk playing on her lips. She has business," Lauren said quietly, without looking me in the eye. "Spit it out, giraffe woman. I can see in your eyes that you want to tell me something," I said, preparing toast for my coffee. "She has to give something back to your ex-fiancé," Lauren said, her smirk turning into a full-blown smile. "I won't like this, will I?" I asked quietly. "You know her as well as I do. And what do you think?" I shuddered. I showered and freshened up. When an hour later, Kat smugly walked into my apartment with a box of Dunkin' Donuts. "I just needed something special for this morning," she said. I smiled incredulously. She shrugged. "He knows everything. I guessed it myself. I didn't say anything, honestly," Lauren said and smiled guiltily. "Okay, tell me already." "You really want it," I grinned. "I called your ex and told her I needed something back," she began. "We met in the park near the donut shop. When she approached, I opened my arms for a hug. I think she didn't see my right fist until it hit her left eye. She fell like a bag of bricks. I'll be upset if this bruise goes away in less than 2 weeks." She paced around the kitchen, holding her fist in the air like a boxing champion. Lauren and I laughed heartily. "Damn, didn't that stupid bitch remember what I told her about your character and your right hand?" I asked. "I haven't gone on a date for almost a year. It just wasn't that important to me. I think my loneliness affected Kat and Lauren more than it affected me. About 6 months later, they tried to set me up with one of their unmarried friends when I came to visit them. They weren't tactful about it, but at least the women they tried to set me up with were sexy. I ended up in bed with a couple of them, but most women were there once, and that was it. I'm just not ready, girls. Give it up, please, I told the couple after one of the dates. But I have to say that you both find damn beautiful woman for me. Lauren's ability to find attractive women worked against Kat after 5 years. She found herself a 22-year-old senior art student at a local small college and ended her 12-year relationship with Kat. According to Kat, she found out about this when she came home from work one day to find Lauren and her new love sitting on the couch waiting for Kat. "That's how it is. So it's simple?" Kat asked the duo. Apparently, new lady Lauren was very excitable, and at some point during the discussion she jumped up from the couch and quickly walked towards Kat. Lauren was unable to stop her in time, and within 2 blows the girl had a broken nose, a split lip, and was lying on the floor. "Did you have to hit her, Kat?" Lauren screamed. "I don't know, but I really wanted to," Kat answered. "I could have warned her, bitch." As Kat told me this story over the phone, she laughed through her tears. "Sorry, baby. From a distance, everything seemed fine between you," I said. "You know, I bet that someday in the future, when same-sex marriage is finally allowed, it will turn out that the number of divorces among same-sex couples will be no less than among hetero," said Kat. "I don't doubt it for a minute," I agreed. Over the next few months, Kat and I spent a lot of time together. It's what you do for those you love. I knew she would never reciprocate my feelings for her, but in my mind, she would always be more than a best friend. Something between family and... We were sitting in a nice restaurant and finishing a delicious dinner. Without thinking, I reached for her left hand, which was lying on the table. I took her hand, held it for a moment, then stroked the back of it, putting it back. "Forgive me, Julian, for not being as good a friend to you as you are to me," she said quietly. "I understand that you want much more from me, but you accept the fact that I cannot give it. And do not insist. You would be the man of my dreams, if I dreamed of men." I blushed and lowered my eyes. "I wouldn't say it's completely disinterested," I answered. "You know there will always be a part of me that hopes, damn it, let's get out of here and do something stupid. I think 2 killer hangovers would be in order," she said. In her early 30s, Kat was still a beautiful woman. It was only a matter of time before she wanted to get back into the sea of dating. Even though Kat and I only saw each other once a month, I thought she suddenly looked a bit different, a little more tired, maybe a few wrinkles on her face, and I'd swear she'd lost about 4.5 kilos. And not to say that she needed it. "Hello? Are you feeling well?" I asked her one Saturday afternoon as we lay limp on my couch watching an NCAA softball game. She looked at me strangely. "Well, I've been very tired lately," she admitted. "I thought maybe I needed to add more cardio to my workouts. You know, next year I'll be 40. This means that you, my friend, will be 40 next year." Damn, I suddenly felt old. I persuaded her to go to the doctor for a physical examination. Hell, she hasn't had a physical since Lauren dumped her. The doctor could only see her in a month, but I marked the date on the calendar. I called her the next day. She gave me vague answers. Finally, she said that in 2 weeks, she would be scheduled for additional tests. I know I was more worried than she was. "Damn, you're as pushy as my mom," she said, trying to joke. Colon cancer is no joke. Doctors noted that since the cancer was detected quite early, the chances of defeating it were high, although they said it might not be easy. I was lucky that the diagnosis came just after tax season. So, with the vacation days I had accumulated and the fact that I was able to work out of the office, I was able to be with Kat often. I took her to many doctor appointments, chemotherapy sessions, and various other appointments. I also interviewed and hired a specialist who could look after Kat when I couldn't be there. At times, her parents stayed with her. She received disability because she had to quit her job. Her parents and I paid her bills. The chemotherapy took its toll on Kat with nausea, fatigue, and some hair loss. Yes, she had her bad days both physically and mentally, but the tough girl I grew up with fought hard. I expected nothing less from her and did not let her give up during those difficult days. Some of those days we fought because I wasn't going to let her feel sorry for me. "You are a son of a bitch. I'm in pain. Give me a break at least sometimes," she shouted to me one day when she wanted to skip chemotherapy. "It won't work, you little rag," I shouted back. "Now get into this damn car yourself, or I'll put you in this damn trunk and take you there like luggage." She staggered out to the car, smoke practically coming out of her ears. She didn't talk to me the whole way. She only whispered once, "I hate you, you asshole. And I hate you," I whispered back, trying not to smile. A few months later, we hoped the worst was over, and we were again sitting huddled together on her sofa, as was our custom. "Why, Julian?" she asked. "You know the answer, Kat." "I love you. Always loved, always will love. No reciprocity is needed, no pressure," I replied. 6 months later, Kat received good news. Doctors announced that she was cancer-free. My parents and I took her to a great restaurant to celebrate. There were a lot of tears. 2 evenings later, she and I were lying on her couch again when she took my head in both hands and looked at me, almost literally nose to nose. She pressed her lips to mine with what seemed to me like a deep, sensual kiss. I was, to put it mildly, mesmerized. "Did you feel it?" she asked. For a brief second I was confused, but then it was as if I had been hit in the face with a shovel. Yes, I felt it," I insisted. She pressed her lips to mine again, and this time I took part in it. We repeated this a few more times over the next few minutes before she pulled my shirt over my head. We kissed a little more, after which she began to undress me. I took both her hands in mine and stopped her. "Are you sure about this? Are you completely sure?" I whispered. "I'm more confident than ever in my life," she whispered back. We undressed each other in a matter of seconds, stopping only to kiss in between stripping off our clothes. She moaned and panted as I kissed her and ran my hands over her body. When we reunited, I heard, "Yes," she croaked. "Oh, Julian." "Oh, Julian" became her main focus for the next 10 minutes, and then she switched to Julian when she reached the first finish line. I kept up the pace. She repeated her vocalizations and came to the finish line a second time, dragging me along with her. I pressed my lips to hers, and we kissed passionately for a few more minutes, ending our lovemaking. I crawled to the side to take most of my weight off of her. "I love you, Julian. I'm feeling it. Feel. I may be a little slow, but I love you. Love you. I love it. I was a fool. Wasted so much time. I can't lose him anymore. Will you marry me, Julian?" I stuttered. My blood pressure skyrocketed along with my heart. Still, I had to be sure that this was not just her gratitude for my help during my illness. "Are you sure, baby?" "I didn't think my equipment was suitable for you," I said. "It's not the equipment, Julian. It's a matter of connection. Do you know how sexy it is when someone loves you that much?" she asked. "No, I don't." I started to speak until she interrupted me. "Well, now you'll find out, mister. From now on, if you allow me, I will show you this every day," she said. "So?" "You know I can never refuse you," I said. "We had a small wedding with my parents and sister, her parents and a few close friends. She moved into my apartment and eventually found a part-time job. She didn't need to work, but she wanted to. If she had asked, I would have carried her in my arms to the house and back. In our 40s, Kat and I were no longer the physical specimens we were 20 years ago, but we didn't need to be. We could still sometimes make the bed shake, but more often than not, we made sweet, soulful love. She taught me something new. I taught her something new. In this respect, we were almost like children. Gosh, we giggled and laughed a lot. I had a lot of time to catch up. Of course, I didn't want her to lack in reaching sweet heights. "This is not a competition, Julian. I don't keep track of how many peaks you give me," she said one night. "And I'm not complaining, animal. In fact, our relationship was not only physical. She has always been my best friend, and life as husband and wife hasn't changed that. We still spent most of our time together, finishing each other's sentences and arguing like 5-year-olds about who was the best MLB player, Steve Trout or Shohei Ohtani. Oh yeah, I also didn't give her any more reason to hit me. Still hadn't forgotten that first and only time that happened so many years ago, and didn't want a repeat. We returned from a 2-week trip to Australia and New Zealand for our 9th wedding anniversary, and about 10 days had passed when I heard Kat vomiting in the bathroom again. This seemed to happen every day after we returned, and I became concerned that she had contracted some disease in the southern hemisphere. She tried to tell me that she had an ulcer because she talked to me too much, but I didn't fall for it. 2 weeks later, she finally went to the doctor, and after several tests and x-rays, the doctor said that the x-rays showed a small mass in the stomach. Given that she had a history of colon cancer, her doctor scheduled her to undergo surgery for investigation. She had to remove the formation and perform a biopsy. She and her doctor didn't seem too concerned. I was terrified. Dr. Magnus Rostovsky looked more like an Olympic weightlifter than a world-class oncologist. He was only 6'8" tall, but had the build of a fire hydrant on steroids. He showed no emotion the few times I brought Kat to see him, but that wasn't the case when he came out to see me in the waiting room after the biopsy. A doctor with tears in his eyes is not a good sign. We did not do a biopsy. Cancer was found everywhere after the autopsy. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Leonard," Dr. Rostovsky said. Kat was officially diagnosed with stomach cancer. Dr. Rostovsky gave her 6 to 9 months to live. Chemotherapy is not possible because the cancer is too advanced, the doctor told us. Under normal circumstances, I was a calm person and Kat was a fiery one, but these circumstances were unusual. I was pissed. Damn, I was pissed as hell. Kat, on the contrary, was unusually calm and resigned to her fate. "How can you be so damn calm?" I shouted. "This is unfair." "No, it would be unfair if I didn't finally see what a wonderful person you are and marry you. We've had 9 wonderful years, haven't we?" she answered. "You know, sometimes you are really infuriated," I said. "I shouldn't know," she giggled. Cancer does not respect anything, much less the life expectancy assessment made by the best oncologist. Kate did not live even 9 months, not even close to 6. She was barely 9 weeks old. The greedy part of me wanted more, much more, but the loving part couldn't watch her suffer one day longer. Shortly after the operation, severe pain appeared. And about. She spent most of the following weeks in a drug-induced stupor. "Sorry, baby. You've been waiting for me for so long, and now I'm leaving ahead of time," she said through tears on her last evening. "I need a favor, Kat, just one favor. Wait for me, and save a place for me next to you. Promise, Kat," I said. "I promise, Julian. Hold me, baby, hug me, please." She had lost weight and barely took up space in the middle of the bed. I moved to the side of the bed where there were no wires and bottles, and carefully moved towards her, carefully enveloping her in my arms. I kissed her softly on the lips and held her there until she went limp. She was 51 years old. About 30 minutes from our house, in the countryside, there is a small cemetery. It is located on a small flat area overlooking a beautiful cornfield. To the side is an oak tree that shades Kat's grave in the early afternoon, while the field below is bathed in bright sunlight. Kat and I found this cemetery one sunny Sunday afternoon while driving out of town a few years after our wedding. We wandered around for a long time, looking at the various graves, some of which dated back to the mid-1800s. We were in the shade of the trees when she pointed to the sunlit cornfield below. "That's wonderful, Julian. We should rest here someday," she said. I promised her that this would happen. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.